Hello, everybody. Thank you. This is James Sarno from Cisco. I'm the Cisco account manager with Networkmaine, and have been working with Andrew and Jeff and Tyler and team on this umbrella solution for Networkmaine. But today we're going to go through why K-12 is using Cisco Umbrella, the solution that Networkmaine is providing for you guys. We're going to go through the different deployment options. We're going to talk a little bit about SIPA, how it'll help you meet your SIPA requirements, help you guys out with security. And then, also some of the things that we're going to cover, especially on the roaming client side, might be pretty relevant for you guys if you're going to have any kind of mandatory working from home type of things coming up down the road with the current COVID-19 stuff we're all dealing with. So if anyone has questions as we go, we're going to cover a lot of content. We're going to go through a few slides. We're going to go through a demo, show you, put some recommendations out there we typically give for K-12. But if there are questions, feel free to chat it on the WebEx to every, and just make sure everyone is marked off in the chat box, and then either Andrew or Tyler or somebody will either answer that question right there, or we'll hit those questions at the end. So we are going to cover a good amount of content. Hopefully a lot of the questions get answered, and then if for whatever reason we can't answer a question today, we'll make sure to have a follow-up email on questions that we didn't get covered. So again, thank you for having us. So again, Cisco Umbrella, this is formerly known as OpenDNS. This is provided through your current Networkmaine service. And so everybody has access to this, every feature and function that we are going to show today. So I guess to level set first and really talk about why we should be considering to deploy this if you guys haven't already, is K-12s are we've got a new reality that we're dealing with today, right? Our users are more mobile than they've ever been before. Every student has a Chromebook or a tablet. All of your employees are taking their work home with us, right? So how do we apply the same policy and enforcement, whether it's security or SIPA related, both on and off the network? The other big challenge K-12 has been dealing with is the increased amount of encrypted traffic. About 60% of all web traffic now is going HTTPS, and a lot of K-12s that we talk to, they've done a great job handling HTTP traffic with traditional proxies, but managing the HTTPS side, whether it's trying to handle certificates and that taking that man-in-the-middle approach to handle HTTPS traffic's been a big challenge. We're going to talk a little bit how we address that today using DNS, and then ultimately, becoming the amount of data that's getting pushed through proxies is becoming too much for a lot of these to handle, and the traditional hardware-driven approach, that man-in-the-middle approach, is slowing our users around, and unfortunately. And this has been going on in K-12, I guess, since the internet's been around, is, our users are trying to get around it, whether they're using VPNs, proxies, or they're just logging in complaints to IT and everybody, saying, oh, this is, our network's slow. And then on top of everything, we've been dealing with kind of like an app and data, explosion, right? There's, every single day there's 100 new apps that your users are trying to use on your network that's either creating traffic or creating security vulnerabilities for you, right? An example would be like a data backup app for Google, right? And you don't know that your teachers are backing up their data to this application, or they don't have any type of guarantees that they're going to get their data back. So there's all different types of issues that K-12 are dealing with today, and we're going to hopefully address all of these throughout this presentation. And again, one of the biggest use cases for Umbrella is the security side. And I don't want to overload you guys with a bunch of stats, but one really good one and useful one is that 90% of all malware requires DNS, right? So this is a very, very effective way to deal with malware. And it's not just malware coming into your network, it's also malware, those command and control requests leaving the network. The last thing we want is when there is malware on the network, those devices going back to God knows where to get different, requests and controls to, either spread malware throughout the network or grab data, that type of thing. Want to be able to break that and contain any issue that we see right away, so there isn't just this spreading all over your network. So and again, why this is DNS is effective and why it's been effective in K-12 is you guys are going to see this is a super simple solution to use, to deploy, and it's going to be used by pretty much all of your devices. Everybody requires DNS. So why Cisco Umbrella here? So again, kind of back onto that DNS side. When you think about Umbrella, this is really your first line of defense. When we're blocking something coming in, this is blocked before it ever touches your network. When you, again, go back to that traditional proxy approach or relying on URL filters within a firewall, right? That stuff actually has to come and hit devices on your network, right? This is all blocked in the cloud before it ever touches anything. And this is going to apply to every part of your network, whether you have kind of like a hub and spoke setup with, your central location and different branch locations from there, or if you're in a very rural area and everybody's got the separate connection out at every location, right? You can be able to easily secure every location throughout your network. And then this also applies to your roaming computers. So how do we apply that same level of policy, when your users bring their Chromebooks home, whether we want to block, adult websites and stuff like that when they go home, or we're trying to block, make sure that those devices are secure when they go home as well. So again, this is going to apply everywhere, and it's, again, a very, very simple solution to deploy. And we're going to walk through a lot of these use cases as we go through the dashboard. And when you think about Umbrella as well, think of it as a big data security solution, right? We're right now, I think we're at about 4 to 5% of the world's internet that we're actually looking at. We're seeing over 200 billion requests every single day, and this is why the solution's so effective, is because we have such a large data set that we can look at. And when you really break down the efficacy of this, we're seeing over 3 million new domains every single day. And out of those 3 million new domains, we're blocking over 60,000 new malicious domains every day. And at any given time, the solution's blocking over 7 million malicious destinations. So when you compare that to your traditional hardware, whether it's a next-gen firewall or a proxy approach, those on-prem solutions really only going to be able to block about 500,000 unique destinations at any given time. And then on top of that, you need to make sure that that solution's up to date and taking all the newer destinations that it's going to be blocking. With this solution, because it's all cloud-based, as soon as we see a bad domain, it's blocked. You don't need to do anything. And we can block as much as we want because we don't have the scalability challenges that you're going to have with a traditional hardware approach. So, and again, I'm not going to bore you to death with a lot of this stuff, but just to kind of give you a little idea of how things are blocked. We have a huge data set, whether it's Umbrella's labs that we have that we're analyzing data. We're also integrated in with Cisco Talos, which is Cisco's security intelligence arm. So there's a lot of data sharing going back and forth between these different groups. And then we're, part of all the, different open source communities, pulling information from all of that. And then, once we gather all of that information, we look at all the different data models, And just based on how the DNS traffic looks, we can tell if something is a phishing attack versus a ransomware attack, whether it's a man-made domain, a machine-made domain, and then what algorithms they use to make those domains. So we can proactively block a lot of domains, malicious domains, before they're even used by attackers. And then on top of everything, we're not completely Skynet yet. So we do have humans that work in our labs. And I've actually got some cool, funny videos that we can share with everybody later. But you know, we do have people that are constantly researching different types of threats, different ways to, you know, detect malicious domains faster and faster. So, how to deploy, you know, what's available to you and how to deploy Umbrella. So there's basically 3 steps to the deployment. And the first step is super, super simple. Basically, all you guys have to do is contact Networkmaine, point your DNS from your external DNS server to Umbrella's IPs, and you're done. That is the deployment. Networkmaine is going to give you guys a dashboard and account, but that's basically it if you don't already have it. Now, this first level of deployment gives you a blanketed Umbrella line of defense on your entire network. Some K-12 stop here, right? You can set policies, block, you know, SIPA related things, block malicious domains, that type of thing. Now, the challenge with just doing this deployment is we don't get the granularity in reporting and policy setting. But if you want to have a line of defense in 15 minutes and just have some baseline policies that you block for everybody, and you want to set and forget, you can stop here. We have a lot of K-12s that stop here and they just have a layer of defense. Some people are very heavily invested into their current proxy solutions, and so if you don't want to maybe remove your current proxy, you can have Umbrella basically block all of what we would block before it ever hits that device, and it's going to take a big workload off of your current proxy or next gen firewalls as well. So we do have a lot of K-12s that stop at step 1 and they're good to go. Now, a lot of our customers do want to start having either more granular control and then also protection when their users leave the network. And typically we see phase 2 as rolling out protection for our roaming users. And when we talk about roaming users, this means anybody with a Windows laptop or a Microsoft device, a Apple MacBook, a tablet, an iPhone, or a Chromebook. So Chromebooks and I'd say that the iPads are pretty popular in K-12, and some K-12s require that in order, you to meet your potential SIPA requirements, you need to provide content filtering when that user leaves the network. This is what the roaming client helps you achieve. And you can set different policies for when a user leaves the network. Maybe you have lighter content filtering policies when a user leaves the network. Maybe you have stricter ones. It's up to you guys. Maybe you have a different policy for faculty and staff versus students. You can have all different types of policies, but this gives you the ability to protect both users on and off the network. The other nice part that the roaming client gives you is it gives you, from a reporting perspective, the machine name, internal IP, and internal IP address from reporting. So when something pops up, you see somebody's going to a bad site or whatever, right? You can tell right away, was this happening, were these requests happening when they were on our IP address or at their home IP address. And you can find that device pretty quick. Then to drill down a little more specifically on the Chromebook piece, this is a newer solution. This was, we were asking for this for a long time because Chromebooks are getting so popular in K-12, and it makes a lot of sense. Now, Chromebooks are pretty secure just how they are because you can't really save any files to a Chromebook. Now, files can be saved to Google Drive and then spread out from there, but For the most part, but from a device perspective, they're pretty secure. However, they're still susceptible to phishing threats. And then we also have the challenge of content. How do we protect these users when they leave the network? And that's where the Chromebook client comes into play. And you can set policies for a specific user. It's based on their Google users or a specific group of users. Up to you. Um, but we do provide that per user visibility and policy enforcement with that Chromebook client. So the nice part is it's not just all right, I got a Chromebook client and I can only set one policy and that's what everybody's getting. You can get pretty granular in how you configure this. And we'll get into a few more details on the Chromebook and roaming clients as well when we go through the dashboard. And then typically the third phase is the virtual appliance. Some people start this as the second phase. It's again up to you guys and where you guys are at with everything. But what the virtual appliance does, it's almost like a giant roaming client. It acts like a conditional DNS forwarder. It runs on VMware or Hyper-V, and it's basically you route all of your DNS traffic to the appliance, and the appliance already knows, is this an internal domain or is this external? If it's internal, go to the internal DNS server. If it's external, go to Umbrella. So it does all of that for you. But what this provides is the ability to get internal IP addresses when users are on the network. So if you have a guest network, it will get that internal IP address. Or if it's any part of the network, we're going to get that internal IP. You can set policies based on internal IPs and internal IP ranges as well. Some K-12s, and they'll stop right there. That's what they want. They can get whatever information and set policies from there. And we're seeing more and more of that because I don't know, a lot of because of I guess the reliance more on Google and a lot of tools and whatnot going to Google, and people relying maybe more on Google identities than AD in the past. But for those folks that do want to have AD integration, this will give you the AD integration as well. It takes a few more steps to deploy the AD piece, but this will handle all of the, if you want to set policy based on AD group, a specific AD user, and then when the reporting comes back, not only will you have the internal IP address, but you'll also have that AD username. So when somebody says, can you look into what Johnny was doing at this time, you can look up their information really quick. Or if there's a malware on the network, you're going to know who it is, what device it is, and what part of the network it's on. Whether it's offsite or on-prem, and get that internal IP address. This is the virtual appliance. This piece takes about takes an hour to two to deploy, depending on how granular you want to go. There's 2 virtual appliances that you have to deploy. Basically, we deploy 2, so when one's up, down, and updating, the other one's running. These are scalable for up to about 20,000 concurrent users. If for whatever reason you have more than 20,000 concurrent users, you can deploy another 2. If you have multiple external DNS servers, you can deploy multiple appliances out. And they'll all report back to the dashboard. There's no additional cost from Networkmaine on deploying multiple virtual appliances. It's all included with what you have. So now we've kind of gone through, and we'll go through a little more of the deployment stuff, and of course our very secure system logged me out of my Umbrella dashboard, so got to log back in here. And let's see. And as you guys, we'll talk a little bit about when we go through the dashboard, some Meraki, we also have a lot of Meraki integrations, whether it's on the wireless side, so you can set policies, say, based on SSID, or on the MX side, so you can, if anybody for whatever reason ever tried to get around your DNS, the Meraki will prevent them from doing that, because they would essentially have to have admin rights into Meraki to be able to change that DNS. So with the, and Andrew, feel free to interrupt if there's any relevant questions that kind of pop up as we go. So I'm here logged into the Umbrella dashboard. This is what you guys will see, and this is what the dashboard will look like for that Networkmaine can provision for you if you don't already have it. And your typical GUI, right, will give you kind of a summary of what we're seeing on your network or off your network, what type of blocks we're doing, what type of apps we're seeing. And then all of this stuff is clickable, so you can kind of view all of these reports here, and then you can filter this based on, yesterday, last 7 days, last 30 days, just to kind of get a bird's eye view of what's going on. This summary report specifically, this overview, you can schedule this as well. So if you just wanted to have a weekly report sent over to you or to your boss or to somebody on the network team, you can schedule these as well. And then it'll also kind of give you some of the trends and any updates in the product that we've had. Now, the way Umbrella works is similar to any type of, I guess, solution that has a policy and some sort of enforcement, right? It's all kind of if this, then that logic. But every policy that we set up is going to need an identity. And an identity can be multiple things. It could be a network, right? So this could be, you guys might have one external IP, you might have a range of IPs, you might have a bunch of separate ones all over the place, whatever it might be. This could be a network. Typically, you'll apply policies on your network that will be like general policies applied to everybody, right? Another identity is a network device. A network device could be a switch. Like we have a new integration with the new Catalyst 9K switches. It could be an access point. We have integration with Meraki and I believe Aerohive as well. So you can set up a policy for a specific access point, and it could also be a wireless controller or a MX device as well. So you can set up basically, if you just want to point your wireless DNS straight from your, say, wireless controller, your Cisco wireless controller, you can do that as well too. So again, multiple kind of options there, but again, network device, that's like another identity. So biggest use case for this would probably be like if you have a library, for instance, and you just got a bunch of random access points in there and you wanted to have specific policies maybe set for those access points, you can do that. Another identity would be your roaming computers, right? So this would be your, when we say roaming computer, this would be a MacBook or a Windows laptop. You can come in here, you can grab these clients. These clients have a unique identifier that says this belongs to your school district, so we know we're reporting everything in the correct dashboard. And again, you can Windows, Mac. This acts as a conditional DNS forwarder as well. It basically just hijacks the DNS on that device. This mobile client is hidden from the end user. Well, you have an option to hide it from the end user. Pretty much everybody does, so that they don't know that it's there and can just go and delete this this file. We also have integrations in with AnyConnect. So if any folks are using AnyConnect for their VPN, you can actually deploy this, the roaming client essentially with the VPN, Cisco AnyConnect VPN. You can also deploy other solutions from Cisco with the VPN client, like AMP for endpoint, Duo for multi-factor authentication as well. So if you got a VPNs out there, you can just add the module and have AnyConnect on all of your, or I'm sorry, the roaming client on all of your devices that have AnyConnect. And from there, you can set policy, you can tag these as well. So you can have a tag, say, all student devices or all faculty and staff devices, and tag all of these, a group of devices in a certain way, and you can set policies based on the tags that you create for your roaming clients. And then the other nice part too is we'll show you that these things are reporting in. It's really important for deployment. So let's say you're doing a deployment via, Microsoft, using Microsoft or another deployment, whatever you use for, mass deployments. We'll tell you, if there's not a green check mark, that means it's not checking in. So most of this is just, it's nice to know that, hey, this device hasn't checked in so long. Why isn't this checking in? The other pieces, we can set up settings that'll basically say disable DNS redirection when when they're on our network. Maybe you want to have the network based policy always take precedent. So when we see that, hey, we're on your network, we'll shut off the roaming client. We can also take into consideration, if there's any group enforcement, IP enforcement, or Active Directory enforcement. So if you had a separate policy for, say, roaming clients, but you always want to take, enable the enforcement based on Active Directory, you can do that as well here. So most of our folks will turn the DNS off when it's on network. The client still reports based on the roaming client, so you'll still get the machine name information and the Active Directory information, or the internal IP. It's just the enforcement is going to be whatever you set for your network policy, which we'll go through in a minute. Then for mobile devices, we consider a mobile device like anything iPhone, iPad related. And the way we deploy these are via an MDM. You can see here the list of MDMs that we have supported. I believe most K-12s in the state of Maine have access to Jamf, so you can just use your Jamf to deploy this this piece. And also as a side note, this was a co-developed solution with Apple, so it's a very clean integration. It's not something we just kind of forced on there, and you'll have trouble getting support on. So this was a co-developed feature with Apple. And then any of your schools that do run AMP for Cisco's AMP for endpoint protection, you can use the same solutions to deploy AMP as well on your iOS devices. Then we have our Chromebooks. So the Chromebooks, you have the Google Super Admin has to sign in to Umbrella to make sure we make that connection between your Google environment and Umbrella. And then from there, we have a config file that needs to get pushed out to the devices. So that way, that gives us, again, that unique identifier for when that DNS request is made to Umbrella. We know it's you, we know who it is, and all the proper information is getting reported. Network tunnels and web users won't apply to you guys. So this is where we're at on the identity side. Again, identities are going to be used to create policies. Now, when remember how we talked about the 3 different phases? On phase 1, we're not going to need to worry about internal domains, and because we don't have the virtual appliance or the roaming client deployed, all we're looking at is external traffic going out. So if that's all you guys just want, if that's all you guys want to do is stop at phase one, you don't have to worry about this portion. But if we do want to deploy the roaming clients and the internal and the virtual appliance, we will want to make sure we add in the domains for you guys before we deploy these, because this is how the virtual appliance or the roaming client is going to know what's internal versus external. If you guys do have, say, tons and tons of internal and external domains, you can always email us a list and we can upload this for you and get done automatically. As you'll see, it'll still pick up automatically anything .local and RFC 1918, but anything else you guys will want to have in, or anything that you just want to go to the not want to go to Umbrella, we would have added in here. So this is what knows what's internal versus external. Here is where we would grab our virtual appliances, and again, this is going to give us the status on what's up and running, what's not running. This will also give us a status on the AD connector with the virtual appliance, and we can grab all of that stuff straight from here. And everything that you guys want to read up on in regards to the deployment prior, we'll have all of the documentation here readily available for you. So as you can see, VMware or Windows Hyper-V, we can run this virtual appliance on. Again, that takes about an hour to 2 hours to deploy. You can also grab the root certificate from here as well. I'd say about 50% of our K-12s actually deploy the root certificate. The why you would want to deploy this, so Umbrella is looking at all DNS. So we treat HTTP and HTTPS the same. And that's one of, again, the nice parts about going Umbrella is we're going to block all of that HTTPS traffic and potentially not blocking before or monitoring before. Now, if it is an HTTP site and it gets blocked, you'll get either the Umbrella block page or whatever you guys custom. We'll go through that when we go through the policies. If it's an HTTPS site, it still gets blocked, but that redirect might be just the kind of like Google OSNAP page. Again, half of our schools don't really care, they just want it blocked. But if you want to have, say, your block page up, you'd probably want to have the certificate deployed. Again, up to you guys. I'd say half our K-12s don't really worry about it. So we went through right now identities. We went through some of the configuration pieces that to take into consideration, whether we're going roaming clients, virtual appliances. Now, policies.
James, I don't know if you can hear me, but we can no longer hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I heard you that time.
All right. Don't know what happened there, but we'll go with that. Where did you lose me?
Just a minute or two ago, right when you ended the discussion on the clients.
Okay. So we're going to switch over to policies. So so again, you'll see here we have DNS firewall web policies. So every EDU customer has access to the DNS portion. Again, 90% of our customers don't want to run proxies. So that's why we don't include it in the DNS in the EDU package. And then the firewall piece is fairly new. If this is something you guys are anybody's interested in, we can have a conversation with Andrew, Jeff, and team, and take a look at this potentially. But we're going to focus in on DNS policies because this is what everybody has access to. So as you'll see here, we have a stack of different policies, and the way this works is order of enforcement. So it's basically somebody goes somewhere, it's saying, okay, is this so and so? No, is this so and so? Go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one, right? Until it finds a policy that applies to them, right? And then we have the default policy, and typically your default policy will probably be your most strict policy. So this will be block all the bad stuff, whether it's content related or security related. And then the nice thing is we do have a tester here, so we can, um, you know, got user here. We'll say Robert. Nope, two Roberts. And then we pick a destination like we can say ESPN.com run test, right? So it'll tell me what policies in place, how this is getting categorized, and then which one is hitting first, right? That way, if you for whatever reason something's getting blocked and shouldn't be blocked, and you think there's something wrong with the policy, you do a quick test to see why it's getting blocked and adjust what needs to be done. So most of you guys, when you deploy it, it's just going to have default policy on, and by default, we're going to block malware, command and control, and phishing attacks. That's on by default. We will, let me cancel all this and show you how to, and you can always edit your default policy as well, but we're going to create a new policy just to kind of show you the process. So when we start creating this policy, we're going to want to decide, all right, what do we want to block? Do we want to block applications? Do we want to block content? Do we want to block threats, right? In this case, we kind of want to block everything. So once we decide what we want to block, we decide, all right, who's this policy going to apply to? Is it going to apply to a specific group of users? And maybe this one just applies to staff. Maybe it's going to apply to everybody, or maybe this is just my Chromebook users. We'll have this one apply to all of my roaming users. Hit next, and then we decide which security settings we want on. Now, again, you'll see these three are turned on by default. These are absolute no-brainers. You definitely want to block malware. This is known bad stuff we want to have blocked. Malicious sites, poisoned ads, whatever it might be. Command and controls. These are devices that are actively infected on your network and making DNS requests back for instructions to do something else to some malicious server somewhere in the world. We 100% obviously want to block these. And then phishing attacks. So this is not just blocking phishing, say that's going to your school email, right? This is any phishing link anyone ever clicks. One of the challenges we have is, people are accessing personal email with no security controls while they're on your network. This will block phishing emails as well, both for, however they're accessing. We do see a lot of K-12s blocking newly seen domains. This is the first time Umbrella's ever seen this domain, so this would be the first person out of 100 million people to go there. Once in a while, we will see, especially if there's, kind of a specific site that the school has that, only people that would be tied to that school would ever go to would see. But if you're seeing that this thing's blocked and you want to have this classified a certain way, we can either whitelist that site on our global allow list, which I'll show you, or if it's something is being categorized the wrong way, you can always email in and we'll get it categorized right. We have a very low false positive rate. Maybe we see between 7 to 10 false positives per week between all of our customers. And so that's, hundreds of billions of requests a week. The other popular one we see blocked in K-12 is potentially harmful. These are sites that we are like, these are on the cusp, we don't know enough about it to completely say that this is bad, or, this might be a site that, some people might think is good, but other people might think is bad. Maybe it's like crypto mining, that type of stuff. We actually do have a separate policy for crypto mining. Every K-12 blocks crypto mining. This, this is a large problem we are seeing in EDU in general. Just people using school devices to do, crypto mining, whether it's, you see all the different types of ones out there, but unfortunately, it's not going to our wallet; it's going to somebody else's. Want to block crypto mining as well, and then DNS tunneling. Usually, every K-12 blocks on top of that. So whether you probably want to have that as like your base policy, but you can also create different sets of policies. So like, you can have like, this is my student block or my faculty and staff security list, and then you can apply that list to different policies as you're creating them. Go over here to hit next here. So once we're done there, we can say, okay, well, we want to have content filtering on this as well. Or base, maybe we want to use our, baseline policy. Maybe we have a, we want to block just bandwidth hogs, and we created a list for that. So you can create different category lists and apply them to different policies, or you can just check off all the different categories you want blocked. The popular ones in K-12 are obviously adult stuff, adult. Their other big one is personal VPNs, and then proxies and anonymizers. Um, what a lot of kids don't obviously don't know, but these VPNs and proxies need to make DNS requests, and we see that DNS request and we just stop it, and then the proxy doesn't work. Pretty effective at stopping some of that stuff. And again, you can pick out whatever you would like here to block. You might have different ones for faculty and staff or students. Some people think it's art, some people think it's adult content sometimes. The other portion is applications. So specifically, taking a look at these DNS requests, we can tell what apps are being used. So you might say, we want to block backup and recovery. Maybe we want to block peer-to-peer. Anything that's tied to social networking. You can block those apps as well. Again, you can create an app category set and have those blocked. Then after we choose that, we can have our destination lists. So these destination lists, you can have a global destination list. So a site that was getting blocked for whatever reason, you just want it to be allowed, it should be allowed for everybody, or a block for everybody. You can add sites to a block list. You can also create your own lists and assign them to policies as well. Skip over this piece, we're going to cover the proxy. So then from there, you'll decide, do you want to, what you want to have for a block page. You can use Cisco Umbrella. You can do a custom one, and you can have a customized logo and message there, um, whatever you want. So sometimes, you might have different ones for applications, for instance. Hey, you're supposed to be using one, Google Drive, not OneDrive, that type of thing. And then you can have bypass users for your individual policies, or bypass codes as well. You can also have bypass users for everything. So once that's saved, then that goes to the top of the stack, and then um, you can move these as well, up and down based on where you want this enforced. Fortunately, this one is kind of I've got some editing privileges I don't have because this is a demo environment, but I could move this down or up based on how I want this enforced. So that's what we have here for policies. So create content policies both on and off the network. We can create security policies both on and off the network. Then from there, we have reporting, right? So we create all this stuff. Well, what's actually happening? We have an activity search report. This is our ad hoc um, searches. So, keep picking on Robert here, but let's say, yeah, Robert's been, uh, you know, somebody said, hey, I need to know what Robert was doing the last 24 hours, last 7 days, or a custom range on a specific time. And then you'll also see here we have different identities based on what's going on here. We have users, we have, AD users. We've got, again, depending on what the traffic is, if it's a specific user, we've got that internal IP address, external IP address. So you can kind of customize this. You can say, hey, I want to see what's blocked. I want to see, all the, uh, all the, let's see here, bad places that, students have gone in the last 24 hours, right? We've got some questionable places here, right? I don't even know who does all this traffic. It's probably randomly generated. I don't think anyone in our demo lab just randomly going to these places, but you can pick and choose again ad hoc reports. Um, from there, we can take a look at maybe just security specific activity. Maybe we want to take a look at, I want to see command and controls on my network in the last, we'll say, you know, this week. So this will give us a list of all the command and controls that we've seen. We can drill into this again. Robert, he's up to no good. It's probably all those sketchy websites he was going to. We've got his internal, his external. I can take a look at this destination. I can see who else has gone to this site, or has traffic going to there. Maybe this is a widespread thing. I can also filter this again, this specific site, maybe the last 30 days or a custom range. And then from there, another cool tool that a lot of K-12s don't get, but you guys have access to it because it's all tied to Networkmaine, is you actually get all the security intelligence behind this traffic as well. So I can see here that this is a command and control site, it's high risk. This is actually our global traffic that we're seeing throughout the world, how many DNS requests were going to this. You'll notice that this is kind of low. That's pretty typical if this is something like Emotet, for instance, where Emotet will have so many different variants and then they get a new one out like, within a couple hours. Widespread things like if like there was a Bad Rabbit ransomware, for instance, that was out last year, that would be in like the hundreds of thousands. You can see then when we started blocking this, um, you know, um, and when this thing was created, this thing's been kind of blocked for a little while with us here. you know Other information, this server particular is specifically is actually hosting 26 other malicious domains. So you get all that this information available um, to you. If this is was like if there was a bunch of IP addresses or other domains tied to this, you'd see all that information listed here as well. And just to kind of give you a quick idea of like how this umbrella is actually, seeing and being proactive with this, I just want to give you a graphical representation. So let's say we saw, Umbrella seeing this domain specifically, right? What makes Umbrella super powerful is that we can see the domains that this malware is pivoting to, and then all the malware that's associated with it. So once we, just because, this domain Umbrella may be never seen, but let's say we saw this IP address, that this domain is going to be blocked automatically, even if we haven't seen it yet. Or, we know that these files are tied to these IP addresses. They're all malicious. We're going to block the IP address and all the um, domains that are tied to that um, domain as well on top of it. So again, you guys get access to this stuff in case, or, let's say Umbrella is just blocking something, let's say, for whatever reason, we saw, what's going on with ESPN? Why is this getting blocked, right? We'll give you the risk score. Now, this isn't getting blocked, but we'll give you the categories that it's getting classified as, and then why it's getting blocked. So you'll see all those requests as well. You can do searches on your own domain if you want. The other nice piece is this all ties in with VirusTotal too. So, if we see, let's see here, does this have any malware sites? So, samples. If I take piece here, so this has got a bunch of different. This is an older piece out there. You can see there's still a lot of activity on this thing out there. But if we take a look at one of their malware samples, we can it'll connect in with VirusTotal. So VirusTotal is seeing this. This is an older one, so it might be kind of gone, but it'll list out where all the other AV vendors, if they're blocking it or not. So you guys get access to this investigate tool, which is nice. If you guys are seeing anything sketchy, or if you don't understand why something's getting blocked, and it is, you can do a quick search in the investigate tool, and you get all that information readily available to you. Another popular one is the top categories in K-12. So we'll show you all the DNS requests go into specific categories. Again, this one always finds its way near the top, and you can get a breakdown of here's all the traffic we're seeing that's out there, related to this specific category. Who's Robert? There's a lot of Roberts here, but why is Robert and all these people going there? We can also take a look at, all the domains that we're actively, seeing users go to as well. Hopefully a lot of the stuff will get blocked. Again, I didn't go to any of these sites. The other big, nice report you guys have available to you now as well is the app discovery report. So this will find all the applications that, from a DNS perspective that we're seeing out there. And it'll rate everything based on a level of risk. So if we take a look at all of our applications and we want to see stuff that's on the high side, right? So, Pirate Bay, probably not an app we want people running, right? But the nice part is this is going to give you business risk and usage risk. So, business risk could be low and usage risk could be high. So let's say it's a backup application, but it's probably not supported. So usage side, this might be a high risk app, for instance, but on the business risk, it's a legitimate company. They don't, Better Business Bureau says they're good. Might have a lower business risk. And then we can also take a look at all the identities that are also going to this Pirate Bay as well. And then we can control the app. So from here, you can say, block this application, and it'll block it for whoever you want it blocked for. Or you can add this policy to whatever I'm sorry, add this application to a specific policy for it to be blocked. Again, pretty slick dashboard and nice for just kind of getting an idea of what apps are out there. So the only other report that's probably, I'd say, that most people gravitate to is the activity volume report, just because it'll show you pretty quick what's being prevented, what's being contained. So contain's obviously a big one, and these are the active command and controls. Crypto mining should be under contain as well too, but when you click on this, say that number, it's going to bring you right to the identities that are seeing these crypto mining, and then it'll take it to you can drill into these users more specifically. But it's a nice report just to kind of get a view of the world. You can have this report scheduled as well. You can view, the trends over time, especially if there's an outbreak. It's probably a lot of spikes, but then we would want to dip, as we're cleaning stuff up. Other than that, there is the admin piece side of the house. So you can add as many people as you want in here. I obviously can't add anything into the demo environment, but you can give people read only. So if a disciplinarian just wanted to have read only, they can get in there. You can also export here as well. So this could go to Amazon or however you want to export your logs. You can do that. And then if you guys are running any um, like security or reporting tools, and you want to have information going into those dashboards, you can. And then, yeah, that's about it. The other thing I forgot to mention, you can turn off logging if some of you guys don't want to have any logs reported, because if you get asked to produce information and you have it, you have to give it up. But if you have logging turned off, you don't have the information, you can always turn off logging if you want. So that's the umbrella solution in a nutshell. And if you guys, some of Andrew, but if for whatever reason we don't cover anything or you think of anything after, feel free to reach out, and we'll get your questions answered for you.
James, are you able to talk real quick about bypass accounts and how those are?
Yep.
How those would work?
Yep. So the bypass accounts, these are going to be basically, you're a you're a you need to be able to go to any destination that you want, right? So you have to be able to go there. So typically your admin, all of your admins will be there. You can do a bypass for specific stuff. So, you might say you'd really just base this on destinations. You probably wouldn't have any security related stuff, but let's say again, you've got a disciplinary person that needs to be able to look at stuff. So you could bypass, say that user can bypass pornography sites or social media, that type of stuff. So you can set your bypass users. Typically, network admin will have bypass everything, and then anyone else, you'd probably pick and choose what categories you'd want them to be able to bypass. Does that answer your question?
I just wanted to just discuss briefly so people are aware of it and how it works.
Not a problem. Go ahead.
Sorry if I could interrupt. One kind of specific question. Is there any way to see when bypass codes are used in reporting? Is that something that shows up in there? That was a specific question we had.
That is a good question. I haven't had that asked. That would make sense to have that report. Um, I'd have to get back to you on that. I mean, the only way that I could think of right now that we would be able to do that is to look up the specific user and what sites that they've gone to. But it would make sense to potentially have a report that would give you anytime a user bypassed or used a bypass code. I'd have to get back to you. It might be in the admin audit log. I don't know. I'd have to check. Let's definitely take a note on that one.
James, do you know? I'm not aware of any way to do it offhand myself. Is it possible to deploy the root certificate to mobile devices like iPads?
We'd have to get back to you on this piece. I would think that there is. I'm not entirely sure. I'm kind of second guessing myself. I would assume that I'd assume that should be handled, but I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to get back to you on that piece. Yeah.
Honestly, don't know either. iOS is pretty locked down. I'm not even sure if it's possible to install
Yeah.
additional
It
certificates.
might be something that the remote client might, or the client might automatically handle. We'd have to
Oh,
get back on that one.
all right.
Yeah, it looks like I don't see iOS on here. The Chrome, I mean, on the Chromebooks, we should be fine. But I don't know about, it says we support Safari, but I don't know if that means iOS on Safari on iOS. I'd have to get back to you on that one.
I don't know how much familiarity you have with the Meraki
Yep.
firewall product line, but we do have a question here from someone who's is noting that there seems to be a lot of overlap between the advanced security license for Meraki firewalls and the features available in Umbrella. Is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, I mean, the it's Meraki's you think of it as it's like a typical Meraki, it's like a typical firewall that's doing your, well, I'm not going to say typical. Meraki is a great solution, but it's, that focus is going to be on URL detection, right? And, it's going to be, it's, I don't believe, and unless something's changed, I'm not sure that, unless it's changed, I don't know if they were doing AD integration or not. But the database is just bigger in Umbrella. There is an integration with the firewall as well, just mainly so users can't bypass any DNS settings. The big difference is Umbrella is going to be blocking a lot of this. All of their blocks are going to happen before it ever touches that firewall.
Thanks.
We can also, if we want to, always, maybe set up a time with the Meraki folks, and they have a demo built out for Meraki, so any of the Meraki Networkmaine customers can see, Umbrella and Meraki working together. We can always set up another webinar for that.
Sounds good.
This is Luke Shadle at the Maine Academy of Natural Sciences. Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Could you cover one more time? There were 3 levels of deployment, but when is that we have a mixed Windows and Chromebook environment? We use Active Directory. Every once in a while I get that question, hey, can you block one particular student from everything? At what point is it that I would need to do that? What point do we need to deploy the virtual machine?
Yeah, so it depends. So let's we're talking about a specific. So I guess do your users have I assume does every student have their own device or no or
yeah, it's usually a 1-to-1.
1-to-1? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that case would be pretty simple. You would just come in, add a policy,
Yeah.
and I would you basically like that computer, like if you just put the roaming client on that device, search for that device's identity,
Okay.
check that specific user, and then you choose everything that you want to block from them from
That you want to, okay.
security
Um,
and a content
okay.
perspective.
We also of course have a guest network, so people bring in their personal devices. Right, or we're using a Barracuda solution, so they have to, everything is blocked unless you're authenticated. Is that a possibility through this as well?
Yeah, so if that user's on, authenticates onto the network, then an AD integration, right, will pick it up, right?
Right.
The other option that you have is you can set a policy for a specific IP range. So if you know that users get a specific IP range,
Yes.
you can set a policy on a specific IP range.
Okay.
And then, like I said, when you can have this default policy is your strictest policy. So basically, it's going to go through the list. Is it this person? Is it this person? Is it this person? It doesn't hit anything. Boom, you get this policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. So it's different ways you can kind of handle that. Any questions out there? Were there other questions as we presented, or I guess I can take a look at the list here. Peek at the chat.
Hi, James, this is Dave Koenig. One of my
Sure.
questions that I just asked is there a support number for Umbrella? I've looked everywhere and I can't find one. And like just an example is, the other day I tried to make a bypass user, and you really have to go into 2 or 3 different locations to make that bypass user sort of active, even after they go ahead and create the account through email. And I was able to call MSLN, and we were able to sort of figure out how to go ahead and do that through MSLN help. But if I want to talk to a person at Umbrella, is there a number to call?
Let me think about this because we're going through Networkmaine. So, typically we'll have, let me just, so there's the email. Yeah, so a lot of the support is handled like through email. And they're supposed to have a pretty quick turnaround on getting back to you guys. And you can request a phone call through the email. If it's something that, we really need to get somebody, again, on the phone, the best bet would probably be reaching out to Networkmaine and having them open up a TAC ticket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. I'll take a look here. BYOD under our agreement through network. Yes, somebody asked about BYO. Oh, bring your own device. So I think this is Nathan. So Nathan, is your question? So bring your own device. We talking putting a roaming client on those devices, or just filtering users when they come on the network with their own device?
We're talking like a roaming client. Is that something that's covered?
You guys can deploy as many roaming clients as you want.
No.
Obviously, you need to have access to that device, but you can deploy it as much as you want. We don't care whose device it is.
I think the trick there, as James alluded to, is getting devices that you don't manage to have the software installed on it.
Yeah, that would probably be the only challenge, unless you guys have are maybe using Jamf from some way somehow with like a self enrollment on iOS devices. That you can do that. Um, there's yeah, that'd probably be for how you'd handle iOS devices. But yeah, you can deploy it to whoever you'd like. We're not gonna you're not like metered or anything that way.
And on network, of course, you can be covered by the network policy as opposed to device policy. So.
Yep. All right, just trying to do. So there's a question on the Chromebook. Does it show username or just the device ID? It'll show the Google username. Let's see. Somebody asked, or if are we covered if we want to move past phase one? Yes, you guys are. Everybody here has access to the virtual appliance and all the roaming clients. Another question was asked, do we need the roaming client for offsite? The answer to that is yes, because the roaming client is what gives that unique identifier that Umbrella knows it's owned by one of you guys, and you can set policy about to it.
A question earlier, I think got overlooked at the time, was related to Meraki integrations for legacy Meraki MDM. I don't know what that means exactly, but maybe you do.
Yeah, so they're referring to a free hockey. That's what I assume they're referring to. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure like that you are totally fine deploying that way on the MDM side. We'll double check, but you should be fine. I think just some of the legacy customers are not getting some of the newer features that maybe some of the MDM, some of the newer MDM features that are being rolled out. All the Meraki integrations are free as well too, so you don't have to pay anything for. And when I say the free stuff, it's like integration in with the MX, integration in with the access points. See here. Yeah, again, when you guys log into your dashboard, you'll have should be a need help section, and you can email Umbrella support. A lot of the support stuff is typically, yeah, we'll run into the bypass stuff. Um, yeah, typically the support's going to be like on recategorizing stuff. So if we go into let's see here, categories. We show one of these sites. This seems to be a popular one. You can suggest different categorization from here. So you can make suggestions from here if you feel something should be reclassified. So there is a good question about using VAs opposed to the Roman client. So um, we have a lot of customers that just do the roaming client, just deploy it out on every device. That is totally fine. And we worked with a state that's very close to you guys, and that, we're working on a project with them, and this is what they want to do. So, all of your desktops, laptops, all that stuff, you can have deployed and you can have it on at all times. That is a very, that is good deployment, supported deployment, it's fine. The advantage of having VAs deployed is if users, again, don't have the roaming client, so they're bringing in a device that you don't own, right? That you may want that traffic going through the the virtual appliance, so you can detect, again, who it is, and if it's something security related or content related, you can pinpoint that based on internal IP address. The other advantage too is all of the IoT stuff. So, it sometimes gets a little more difficult getting everything routed to a VA because you end up getting a lot of like static IPs. But all of those devices that are going to be making a DNS request, like we want to make sure that we can maybe set policy against IoT stuff, or if there is an infected IoT device, you're going to want to be able to pinpoint that right away. So that would be another advantage of having the VA deployed. So that way, again, now that every device isn't necessarily a user behind it, that would be another advantage. There's still going to be, as long as you have phase one done, those IoT devices are still going to be blocked if they're making malicious requests, but we'll make sure it's still getting blocked, and with the VA you'll see the internal information.
Just as a add-on to that, I'd point out that for covering clients that can't or don't have any of the mobile remote client installed, we normally also suggest adding a firewall rule, or we can do it on our side to pin people down to using the DNS servers, whether they're the virtual appliance or the public umbrella DNS servers, so that they're not able to simply configure their own DNS server to get around it.
Yep. Absolutely. Forgot to hit on safe search. Sorry about that. So we do have safe search for you guys as well. So that'll just be under the advanced section in the policies. And so you can basically, and it's using whatever they're, YouTube, Bing, or Google. You can do the safe search for that as well. You can turn that piece on.
Offhand, James, do you know if there is a relatively simple way to say I want to enforce safe search and then block access to search engines that don't support a safe search method?
That don't, well, basically be block everything except Bing and Google in this scenario. So there's a category for search engines, and you can block all search engines and then put Bing and Google on your global allow list.
Great, thanks.
No problem. Let's see here. There's a question on Chrome extension proxy VPNs not in the list. So if you have you have a you see that there's a proxy or a VPN that is not getting blocked, you can add the domain to the to a block list. The other option you guys do have, Cisco does have another tool called Cloud Lock that will block. They have an apps firewall component, and you can block, Google extensions that are tied to, your Google username. So if, you know, kids are activating, Tunnel Bear or something using their G Suite account on their Chromebook, you basically block those apps from running via Cloud Lock as well. Let's see here. Questions here. Yep, VPN and proxy anonymizers, those are all included. Everything we covered today, it's all included with the service through Networkmaine. So somebody asked about syncing up the users. So with Google, once that super admin authenticates into Umbrella, it's going to sync your G Suite and Umbrella together, so we know, we can pull in that username. In regards to Active Directory, we have a separate connector that ties the Active Directory and the virtual appliance together. And if you have kind of further questions on those integrations, if you have access to the Umbrella dashboard, when you go to Sites and Active Directory, and you hit download components, you can go to setting up the VA and setting up the Windows service straight from here. It'll bring you straight to that documentation. Um, bu- 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 bu. Somebody asked about pushing out the roaming client without removing the existing configuration. I'm not entirely sure what that question, what the background is. I don't know if Ken, if you're still there, if you want to shed a little more light on that, I can potentially answer your question for you. Ken might not be there. That's okay.
So I think he just replied in the chat, but I think what he was trying to do is he has clients installed, but he did not hide the clients from the end users, and I think specifically on a Mac. So he's wondering if there's a way he can reinstall that, so keep the settings but hide the client.
Let's I believe, and we'll need to double check this, but I believe when we are deploying the config file, there's multiple options that you can choose. And one of the options is to have the file, I believe you need to redeploy. We will, I can double check that. If he gets back to us and just shows us which one that he used, or if he can see what the customer, what the end user actually sees on their end, just so we kind of know what he used to deploy, we can get back to you and if he's going to have to redeploy or not. But yes, we definitely highly recommend hiding the roaming client. The other thing to consider too on the roaming client is just make sure you run through the documentation. There's a specific port on your firewall. Most people, I forget which what port it is, but most people do have it open. You will want to make sure that that port is open before you deploy it out, because it's just how Umbrella communicates out. I can get back on the specific port on that. Let's see here. Was there more questions on the? So somebody asked, how does the VA identify the user on a device that does not have a client installed so the correct policies can be applied? VA on it, identify the user on a device that does not have a client installed.
Clarify that. We have social workers that show up on campus that need to have access, and right now, if it's a month, once every 6 months, whatever it is, and they need to have access to the internet. Now, with our current Barracuda setup, if you are an unauthenticated user, you are blocked from all traffic.
Mm-hmm.
They would receive a temporary guest account that I have set up that gets shared. I change the password on a regular basis, so they log in with guest visitor, and then the password. And they have a certain set of rules that are applied that give them access to the internet with appropriate blocking in place. So there we have a person who's not regularly here on campus, who is not necessarily part of our Active Directory, and whose machine doesn't have the client installed. So how do we manage that sort of a situation with Umbrella?
So does this user authenticate? So is it an Active Directory account though that they're authenticating to?
It's an Active Directory account that I've created. Yes.
Yeah. So
The Barracuda checks up against the Active Directory to check for the current password, and then what they receive is a block page that says enter your username and password.
From Barracuda.
From Barracuda, from our device, yes.
Yeah, I'd have so if that user authenticates to AD when they logging into they authenticate when they log into that device, so they type in a username and password when they log in.
It's their own device, so they're not even part of our Active Directory. I consider it a rogue device.
Okay, so they're using like a BYOD device.
Exactly.
Yep. I'd have to get back on different ways that other customers are doing it. I mean, it could be as simple as like if you know that they're going to be assigned a specific internal IP address, you can give them a policy based on that internal IP. If then, or if there's a way that they can authenticate to AD, against AD when they're using their personal device, that would be another way. Let me double check on, if what some other maybe some other customers. I would assume that this would be a use case that a bunch of folks would probably have.
Right. Does this another question might be is, does Umbrella have integration with any captive portals? I'm sure it does with Meraki, but so
yeah, it does with Meraki. I would need to check on other others. Be honest, I would think that maybe we should have our own in a way, but I can find out what are the captive portals. If Andrew, you want to take a note of one of the follow-up items, we can hit on that.
yeah, because it turns out we don't just have like one or two people that show up. It's a lot of people show up on campus that need that access, and it's just it's a nightmare.
Yeah, we can figure. Yeah, I'm sure we've got a bunch of customers that are dealing with it, so we'll figure out whatever the easiest way is that they've been addressing it with minimal amount of work.
I really like what I'm seeing, and I wouldn't mind getting away from the Barracuda to engage this, but these are just some of the nuances that I have to
Yeah, absolutely. And again, do you have Umbrella deployed?
No, we don't, not at this point. However, I think before all is said and done, within a week, I'm going to Network Maine to turn it on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and again, you can, have a transition period,
Oh, yeah.
right? And this goes for everybody here. I would have this deployed no matter whether you have a proxy or not, and if at a minimum, just have the security settings turned on. And it's going to take a huge workload off of everything else that's blocking stuff. And then, you can kind of slowly, you know, get the roaming client, address the roaming users, right? And then once you feel ready, you save some money and you implement the Active Directory integration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We'll take a look here. Let's see other questions that we see pop up here. Yeah, so do you have to install on a Windows VM client? So it's either Hyper-V or ESX, um, Microsoft, I'm sorry, Windows ESX for the virtual appliance. I think that we hit most of the questions. I don't think there's, I think somebody said that their DNS layer encryption, DNS layer encryption disabled offline. So let's take a look here. So if it says that it's offline, that means that the client is not talking back to Umbrella. Depending on when you turned it on, that sync could, it takes a little while. Takes, once you first deploy it, it might take a few hours just to get everything kind of synced up and reporting in real time. But then after that, it should be, everything should be in real time after that. So I'm not sure when the Roman client was deployed. The other piece is we may just when you go through the documentation, just you'll notice that they request a a port turned on, sorry, open in your firewall, so that it could be getting blocked as well too. So want to make sure that that is all open. My battery's about to die, so I gotta make sure I plug in before we lose this. Are there any other questions, Andrew, at all? I think we've got a few follow-up items that would probably make a lot of sense. I would think that, if you got quite a few Meraki customers, it might make sense to do a Meraki umbrella integration demo. We can bring the Meraki guys in for that. They've got a bunch of different labs that we can do. And then, if you guys like these types of webinars, we can do other ones. There are other tools that you guys have access to, like threat hunting and that type of stuff. So, if we want to keep doing some of this stuff, we can always set up another one.
Yeah, we can do a canvas and see how much interest there is, and
Yeah, but I'd say if I was to leave with, if you had everybody's to leave with something, phase one, if you do not have that deployed, I would do it today. The other thing you're going to see is that Umbrella's DNS is extremely fast. So if you're using like root hints, for instance, you're going to see probably an improvement on, just uh, uh, the browsing speed. Um, so, I would, at least have it just resolving to Umbrella, and I think you'll see some improvements there. And then just have, at a minimum, just get some blanket security policies turned on that are the no-brainers, and then you can ease into everything else.
Sounds good. Yeah, I do have a list of follow-ups. I can send those to you and we can see what we can do.
Absolutely. All right. Well, appreciate everything, guys. Again, James Sarno with Cisco, and look forward to hearing some of the feedback.
Thanks a lot for running this, James.
Take care.